With our backs now turned on Gibraltar, it was into Spain, the extreme southwest of Spain, and a journey of some 300 kilometres to the Algarve of Portugal. Though we didn't want to use up too much time, the journey certainly wasn't without incident. In the extreme temperatures of this region, we had to stop for Coke. They don't see so many tourists around here, so we got completely overwhelmed by the whole village, and mostly children. We went into their streets and then into their homes, and we couldn't take our leave. In a way, they're not really poor. They haven't got much money, but their demands aren't that great. They were just wonderful. We were making for the frontier town of Avemonte, where you can take a ferry boat to Portugal across the Rio Guadiana. The country was so beautiful, but we were too eager to get a swim on the Algarve that we needed to leave it for another year. The map, the ferry crossing doesn't look that far, so we were surprised when we found there was even enough time for Margot to give the Toledo a fresh look. With a name like Villarreal de San Antonio, the beach just had to be good, and our camp was just edging onto it. So, to that end, the Algarve, the southern-facing coast of Portugal, was all that we had expected. We hadn't really left ourselves enough time for a good look at Portugal, so at Faro, the capital of the Algarve, it was not much more than a pass-through visit before our trip to Lisbon. We weren't long on the road north before we realised that the culture of Portugal deserved a lot more time than we had to spend investigating it. Some 60-odd kilometres south of Lisbon lie the great Cork oak forests. These strange contorted trees, when debarked, seem to take on a grotesque, Disney-like look, and you can make what you like out of their fleshy, angular shapes. But bottling up one of the world's most famous wines from Portugal is a very serious business. Almost certainly the most important industry in the land must be fishing. So at the port of Setúbal we gave up a whole morning around the fish docks. Portugal is of course famous for its sardines, and the town probably passes more of these along its quay than anywhere else in the world. Geographically, Lisbon has been superbly sited as a port. It lies on the Tagus with a huge lake to the northeast. Then the wide river runs along its southern flank that then opens out onto the mighty Atlantic Ocean. Almost certainly the most famous explorer port of the Discovery Age. But the only important building to survive the great earthquake of the 18th century was the beautiful Cathedral of Jeronimus, lying on the Beeland waterfront. It has been used as a burial place for some of Portugal's many famous explorers, those who Portugal never failed to honour. By now, motoring through the Estemadoran countryside, where the windmills sing and the pine trees less readily release their resin, we were really pushing it for time. We had in mind one more really good Atlantic bath, and then a quick visit to the port of Porto, where the port wine comes from. Eventually, we arrived on the quayside of the Douro, plumb in the middle of the port wine distilleries. A showpiece Rebello was there to greet us. It may well have been a working boat once, but for the tourist it had been painted up. Its lesser cousins were upstream, anchored, ready for the soon-to-be season when they carried the grapes from the picturesque Douro Valley. We visited the Coburn distillery right there on the waterfront. The ties between Oporto and Great Britain are indeed strong, and so is their wine, which is always fortified with brandy port. We took ours in the visitors' lounge and lifted our glasses to our very first trip to Portugal.